Hi everyone, welcome back to the series. In the last episode, all we did was we created some background elements that scroll slightly to the left and right just to add that bit more depth to the game and make it look a little bit nicer. Nothing special, nothing too important, but I think it looks really nice. In this video, we're going to be adding more aesthetics as well by adding in our game's UI. Now the UI that we're going to need to add in is a tab at the top for health, lives, the current score, our high score, and we're also going to add in a little tab at the bottom for our mobile input controls. Now the mobile input controls will be covered in the next tutorial, the next episode of this. We're just going to set the foundations and put in some buttons right down at the bottom. So let's just jump straight into it. So the UI elements that we're actually going to need, obviously we're going to need a canvas, we're going to need a few panels to keep everything in line, we're going to need some text and we'll be using the Text Mesh Pro package, and we're going to need some buttons and images, the odd few extras maybe here and there. So let's start off by creating our canvas. So we'll create a UI canvas. And we always get an event system whenever we create a canvas, and I just like to parent this to the camera so I know exactly where it is and I don't accidentally delete it. If you delete that, then most if not all of your input does not work. So we'll just rename this to our main canvas, and inside here we'll add a panel. If we double click our panel, we'll see that it takes us all the way out here where our UI elements are stored. First things first though, what we're going to want to do, we're going to want to set up our canvas for multi-resolution display. So the way that we can do this, very simple, is in our canvas game object, we can go in and instead of it being set to constant pixel size, we can scale with our screen size. And you can mess about with this. You can have your reference resolutions to whatever you feel you need. I just usually leave everything as it is because for me so far, touch wood, everything's worked perfectly fine. So now that we've got that set up, we can rename our panel to top panel, and we'll just resize this a little bit and bring it in slightly. We may need to tinker with the positioning and the sizing later on, but for now that'll do just fine. And for whatever reason, a panel always comes with about half opacity. So if we click on the colour in the inspector, we can just drag our opacity all the way up to 255, which is completely opaque. Now what we want to do, we want to come down to our sprites, and somewhere we have borders. And as you remember, in the second tutorial I think it was, we set up our borders so they are tileable. So when we drag and drop our borders into the source image of the panel, we should see that it's not distorting. We're getting a perfect corner piece on each side, our centre is stretched across, and our sides up, down, left and right match perfectly. What we can do though, just to make this a little bit neater, is right here inside the image we can see that we have a pixels per unit multiplier. Now if we change that to 2, we can see that everything stays the same. We still have that crisp edge and the stretching, but everything is just that slight bit smaller. So you can play about with this to your heart's content. I just like having it set to 2 like this. And now what we can do, we can set our anchor point for our top panel to be anchored to the top center. So that means whenever we resize our aspect ratio, we're always going to be, maybe not a landscape because we're not a landscape game. It's always going to snap straight to the top and scale accordingly. So let's put this back to my original one. So what we can go ahead and do, we can go ahead and add in all of our text elements, our image elements, anything that we like. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up a reference image that I have so I can get the design as it was in my, my little teaser video. Okay, so inside of our panel we're going to want to add a TextMesh Pro element, and we'll import that package. Now that we have that imported, we can use TextMesh Pro, as you may already expect. Now, I'll flash up a bit of an image of what I'm going to try and make this look like. So as you can see, we need a label for health, lives, score, high score, coins, and a wave counter. We also need an image or a sprite for a health bar, and we're going to need 3 lives. So we'll go ahead and I'll probably speed this up a little bit just so you're not watching half an hour of me messing about trying to get everything lined up perfectly fine, but I'll still give you a bit of a talk through after all this is completed. So I'll speak to you again in just a second. Okay, so there we have it. We have all of our main elements in there. So now what we're going to want to do, we're going to want to change this font out, make it look a bit nicer, then we may have to do a few little tweaks here and there. So let's get on with making the font. Now the font itself has come from 1001fonts.com. It's a completely free font and it's also free for commercial use. So I'll put a link to the font itself in the description of this video, but you can use any font that you like. So I'm going to take this font, I have it open in my second monitor. I'm just going to drag the font file, the TTF, True Type Font file, I'm going to drag this over into my fonts folder. Now currently we just need to do one more step, because with this being a TTF file, TextMesh Pro can't actually read it. We need to convert this into the correct format. So the way that we do this, quite simply, right click our font, create, TextMesh Pro, font asset, or Shift Control F12 is the keyboard shortcut. And what that's going to do is that's going to pop in an SDF version of our font file. So now all we should have to do is we can select every one of our text elements like so and drag and drop a pixel SDF into the font asset. And as you see, everything's updated, but size wise it isn't perfect. So I'll just go in and resize all my text and I'll be with you again in just a second. So there we go, everything's looking a little bit nicer now. But to keep with the colour palette, I want to change the colour from white to one of these others. So what I want to take all of my literals, so that'll be all my labels, so health, life, score, high score, so on, and I want to change this to a darker colour. So I'm going to come over here, after selecting all of them, select the colour picker, and I'm going to select, let's try this darker mid-tone green. No, that's too dark. Let's try standard green. That's looking a bit better. Okay, and then we'll select all 4 of the values and we'll make this our lighter colour. Perfect. And now because we have this inner panel, if we wanted to move this around, we can move everything around on its own. So I'm just going to bring that a little bit lower than it was before, so we've got a little bit of a buffer gap just at the top here. I'm also going to move my health to the left slightly, just so we've got a little bit more room, and that should be fine. So what did I do while I was speeding all this up? Well, I added in all these labels, which are just your standard TextMesh Pro elements, added the text into them. I also added in an image for my health bar, which currently only has a sprite in there from my my health bar's sprite sheet down here, and we have a game object, an empty game object with 3 images in there for our life images. And that's all I did, nothing fancy, nothing spectacular, it's just your bog standard basic UI setup. So now that we have our basic UI set up, we're going to need a script that controls all of this. We'll close that down, open up our scripts and create a UI manager. We're only going to want one UI manager in our game. So we can get rid of the start and update, but we'll add in an awake method. And we're going to make this into a singleton. Now, if you want a more in-depth description of what a singleton is, I do have a full tutorial on them. So you can go and check that out if you want, like I say, a little bit more information. But right now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to write out a private static UI manager, and we'll call that instance. And then in our await method, we'll check if instance is equal to null. We'll set instance equal to this, or else we'll destroy the game object. And it's as simple as that, really. And now what we want to do, we want to get some references to all of our text value fields. So in here, we're going to be needing using Text Mesh Pro, and we're also going to need to be using UnityEngine.ui. So we'll start by just adding in all of our variables. So we're going to need a public Text Mesh Pro UGUI, and that's going to be for our score text. We're going to need a private int score to go along with that. Then we can just copy this. And this time we're going to want one for our high score text. And again, we'll have a high score integer value in here as well. Another one for our coins text. And one final one for our wave text. And we're also going to need a private int wave in there too. We also want some public references for our images. So we'll have a public image array, and that's going to be our life sprites. A public image for our health bar, and a public array of sprites, which are going to be our health bars. So what these are going to hold, these are going to hold 3 life images. The health bar is going to hold a reference to the health bar image, and the health bars is going to hold all 5 or 6 sprites for our actual health and the different sprites for that. So what methods are we going to need inside our UI manager? Well, we're going to want one for updating the lives on screen. We're going to want one for updating our health bar. We're going to want to update the score, the high score, the wave counter, and our coins. So we're going to have a static method for each one of these. So let's start with a public static void update lives, and we'll let this take in an integer, which will be the amount of lives that we want to display on screen. Next, we'll have a public static void update health bar, and again this will take an integer for the amount of health that we want to display. A public static void update score, and that will take an integer again for the amount of score that we want to add to the current score. Public static void update high score, and as that says, that's just going to take the saved high score and put that up on screen. Public static void update wave. All that's going to do is add 1 to the wave counter and then refresh that screen. And finally, one more, a public static void update coins. And what that's going to do is that's just going to update the coins UI element. Really basic stuff, but every game needs it. So we'll start by filling in our update lives method. So what are we going to need in this? We're going to want to check for each image I in our instance dot life sprites. So that means we're going to iterate over every one of our images. We're going to set the colour of that image to be slightly greyed out so it looks inactive. Now the way that we could do this, we could do a new colour here, But the way that I prefer to do this is I like to keep my colours up here as variables. So let's do that. We'll create a private colour32. We'll call this active, and we'll set this equal to a new colour 1111. So that's full colour and full opacity, and that will show an active life. So if we want an inactive life, we can leave it all as full colour, but this time we'll take the opacity down to about 1/4, and we'll see that in action in just a minute. So if we set everything to our inactive colour, sorry, that needs to be instance.inactive, and then we can iterate over the amount of lives we want to display and turn those back on. So we'll do a for loop, and we'll create an integer I, set it to 0, while I is less than L, the amount of lives that we've passed into the method. What we'll do, we'll set instance.lifesprites, and whatever index we're up to, .color equal to instance.active. So now if we pass in 3, all 3 of our images will turn to their original colour. If we pass in 2, the first 2 will go back to the original colour, and we'll ignore the third, which is already set as inactive state. And that should be all we need to do to update our lives. So let's go into the health bar. This one's quite a bit simpler. All we need to do is set instance.healthbar.sprite equal to our instance.healthbars, and we'll pass in the amount of health that we want to display. So in the inspector, when we set up this UI manager, in our health bars array, what we're going to want to do is for index 0, we're going to want the sprite of no health whatsoever. Index 1, we want the one with 1 health bar, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. So whatever we pass in here, we'll display the corresponding sprite for that value. Again, when we see that in action, that'll make quite a bit more sense. Next, we're updating our score. That's nice and simple. That's instance.score plus equal to S, S being the score that we've passed in to add, and then we'll take our instance.scoreText.text and we'll set that to instance.score. We'll put that to string. And just to make this look a little bit more arcadey, what we can do, we can actually mask that string with some leading zeros. So if we, in speech marks, put 000, 000, if we have a score of 100, for example, it'll display on screen such as this. So we have 3 zeros, a comma, then 100. It just adds a bit of nostalgia to it. Now we'll just bang a to-do on our high score, because currently we aren't saving or loading a high score, so we can't really do anything for this yet. So we'll just jump into our wave, which will again be extremely simple. This will be instance.wave, we'll add 1 to it, and then instance.waveText.text again is equal to instance.wave to string. This time we won't mask that out, we'll just leave that as it is. And again, same for the coins. We aren't actually storing coins anywhere yet. We haven't even got our coins in here yet, so we'll just add a to-do in there as well. So let's go and hook all this up in the inspector. So we can jump back over, and on our main canvas, we can drag and drop our UI manager. And as you can see, we have quite a bit to set up here. So our score text will be our score value field, high score value, coins, coin value, wave value. Our health bar image is there. Our 3 life sprites, 1, 2, 3, go into our life sprites array, and then finally our sprites, health, all 6 of these can go into our health bar array. So we can double check all this is working. If we jump into our, our player script, in our start method, what we can do is we can simply call UI manager dot update health bar, and we can pass in our ship stats dot current health, and again we'll call UI manager dot update lives and pass in ship stats rather dot current lives. So when we start the game, whatever we have set, so we should have 3 lives at the start, and we'll also start with, I believe I had it as 3 for our current health. So let's double check that. We play the game. Oh, we have 1 as our current health. Why is that? Have I set it as 1? Player shape. I think I did set it as 1, didn't I, for testing in another video? I did. Oops. What am I doing? What am I doing? Okay, here we go. Ship stats. So if we set this to 3 and play the game, we should see we have 3 bars of health. And we do. I can just turn off my shields. Now you see I get hit. I get my player hit message, but now we want to take 1 away from this. So in our player, where we take damage, we -1 from our current health. So we can just simply call UI manager dot update health bar, and we'll pass in ship stats dot current health. So that should update our UI, and we'll have 1 less health bar up at the top. Similarly, when we lose a life, we can do exactly the same for our lives by calling our update lives and pass in our ship stats dot current lives. Easy. If we play our game, we'll do the same again. We'll disable our 3 shields just so we can get hit a little bit easier. If we take note, I have 3 health. Now I have 2, 1, 0. I disappear, I lose 1 life, and I'm back. Take a hit, I'm on 3 again. So as you can see, all this is working perfectly fine. And as you saw there, by accident, I managed to shoot one of the enemy bullets out of the air. We forgot to test that when we recorded that, but it looks like that's working perfectly fine. Another thing we want to throw in here is we want to update our score whenever we kill an enemy. So that's inside of our alien script, and what we want to do, whenever we kill the alien, we want to call UI manager dot update score, and we'll pass in our score value. So then the UI will automatically update itself and add that score in. So let's have a see. Let's see if that works. Shoot, and we have a score of 50. We may need to resize that. Oh, there we go, straight through the middle of them both. As you can see, our score's working perfectly fine, and we get different scores for different aliens when we kill them. Perfect. And we may also want to do that on the mothership as well. We can copy that. We haven't actually coded the mothership.
Bruh.
So this is just very simple, same as we did before. If we do if collision.gameObject.compareTag is equal to friendly bullet, we want to update the score with the score value. We want to destroy the collision.gameObject, which would be our friendly bullet, and then destroy this game object itself. There we go, that should be working fine. And now, relatively quickly, we have a utility script, a UI manager, which can be called from anywhere in our project to update our score, high score, wave counter, coins, health, and lives. So in later tutorials, we will be building on this UI manager when we add a few extra features in. But for now, I think that's working pretty damn well. So I'm going to leave it there for this tutorial. In the next one, we're going to be extending on this UI by adding in mobile controls for the player. So that's going to involve adding some buttons down at the bottom here for moving left, moving right, and shooting. So I hope you're enjoying this video. If you are, make sure you like and subscribe, and tell me if you want more of these full game breakdowns. I'm really enjoying doing this, and it'd be a shame if you guys didn't enjoy watching them. So I'm going to leave you there, and I'll see you again in the next video.